So good morning, Matt. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our SportsFX currency update, which is something that we're going to start on a weekly basis, just having a bit of an overview of the week. So if you do have any funds either to send or receive, you've got a bit of an idea of what's happening around the currency markets. And then on a daily basis, Matt and I will just have a quick discussion about what's happened overnight and anything major coming up for the day. So Matt, good morning. How are you?
Yeah, good, mate. Thank you. The first one of many to come.
Yeah, definitely. As I said, it's something that I've done a little bit of, but it's something we want to get into the habit of doing on a daily basis. As we know, people will generally touch base when they need to send funds, and hopefully this will just give them, a bit of an education around the better times to send, if it's a good time, if it's not, or maybe if we can time things for them, use things like limit orders or forward contracts if it applies.
Perfect. And as you said, mate, we want to try and, at the start of the week, set the week up, what's happening at a global level, concentrate on a couple of key pairs, have a chat around that, and then try and bring it back to some live examples of athletes that we are working with at the moment that we know are in certain jurisdictions and provide that sort of level of local advice, if you like.
Yeah, well, I've got a few of them actually for this week. The first one I was going to touch on was the Aussie Yen. So I'll share my screen. I'll talk about the Aussie Yen quickly, and then I'll have a look at the calendar. So if you can see that there now. Right. So what we're looking at here, right, is Aussie Yen. This is back in July, where Japan raised their interest rate for the first time in about 17 years. And because of it, if you know much for people, it's the carry trade, which was a lot of Americans and American hedge funds that had borrowed money at zero or next to nothing interest, then got hit with an interest rate increase and everything sold off. So the Japanese yen, this is the Japanese to Aussie, sold off. That was close to 15% in a month, basically. Huge. It went from 110 all the way back down to 93. Now, what we're seeing over the past couple of weeks, and that happened if you look at the stock market, it done the same thing, Aussie US, everything just collapsed. So you have events like that, because if you look at it before that, it was quite orderly, where the Aussie was very strong. It was just orderly making new highs, nothing crazy. Everything was just, nice and smooth sailing. Bad news if you're an Aussie playing in Japan. Now, we have quite a few of them, both footballers and a lot of rugby union players. So this last 12 to 18 months has been terrible for them. The reason being is that earning Japanese yen, and they might have signed a contract. I've got one player in particular who signed a contract around here, around June 2023. Rates were at 93. Now he has to be sending money home, over 100. So it eats into his Aussie dollars coming back. So what we're seeing recently is that huge sell-off, and then it did start to recover, sort of sold off again and started to recover again. Now, on Friday, around about 3 or 4 o'clock, it dropped 2.5% in 40 minutes. And I'll go to a 5-minute chart to just show you what that kind of looks like. This was Friday afternoon, where every little bar here is 5 minutes. And you can see there was obviously a bit of news coming out around the election and a potential new prime minister. And then, bam, 2.5% in 40 minutes, as I say. So Friday afternoon, you want to move home $100,000, you're $2,500 worse off the back of some political decision. So these are the things that, one, you can't anticipate as much. You don't know, obviously, what's going to happen in the future. But just to be aware of things like this when they, potentially can happen, is to either get trades done before it or wait, a day or two afterwards. So that's where we sort of seen a massive sell-off on Friday afternoon. Now, as I say, because we've got several players over there, we're sort of looking at the moment at, so that the new prime minister that's looking to come in, he's an interest rate hawk, meaning he looks like, and he's in favour of raising the interest rates over there, which should strengthen the Japanese yen. That's good news for our players, because if that's the case, we might start to see the yen strengthen, which is good for bringing it back into Australian dollars. So we're going to set in this area here. If I can bring up, where are we? In and around sort of, this area around here is look to bring in some limit orders for players. Now that could be, if we start to see some spikes happen in the market, is setting some limit orders for where they want to to take profits or transfer their funds back. So that just gives us a bit of a target, I guess, and also because you can see wild swings in this, it also gives you the potential to take advantage of those wild swings and start setting some orders, lodging them with the bank, and then if we are to spike in and above, hopefully take advantage of some movement down there.
Yes, that makes sense.
So that was that one there. So the second part of that is the week ahead. So the week ahead, bring up the calendar. As you can see, there's a lot of red news, what you want to be looking for. And as I said, most athletes, they're not going to look at this. This is our role, is to have a look at this on your behalf, make you aware of what's coming out and when, and how it can affect you, depending on the currency that you're dealing with. So this morning, there's manufacturing data out of China about 11:30. So around here, we might see some fluctuations in the Aussie dollar, depending on what comes out and the figures that are here. It is forecast to be a little bit higher than last month. So last month was at 49.1, which is their sort of, you want it above 50 is positive for the Chinese economy. It's been below now since April. So that's why over those past few months, we've seen the Aussie a little bit lower. There is some good news and stimulus coming out of China last week, which has given the Aussie a boost. Anything, above 49.4 here, if it was to beat forecast, potentially you'll see the Aussie have a bit of a rise this morning. Later on in the euro, we've got German preliminary CPI. You've got the president of the ECB speaking, and that's sort of today. Overnight, we've got the Federal Reserve Chairman Powell from the US speaking as well. So it's quite a big start to a week. There's a lot happening from a Monday. And if you look through the rest of the week, a lot of that red or high tier news is out of the US, a couple out of the euro, which is their estimate on their CPI, and retail sales out of Australia. But the heavy sort of red news and later in the week is all around the US. So that's where we sort of look at that overview and just go, all right, that's what we're looking at. We know what's happening. The currency pairs now that we want to sort of keep an eye on this week for people would be Aussie Yen, obviously, for the first one, Aussie Euro. So moving firstly into the Aussie Euro, we're back at 62 cents this morning for the first time since July. And outside of that, the last time we were there, it touched in January. It touched 62 cents and then sold off. So this is sort of key. Depending on what happens tonight with their data and also their president's speech around potential interest rate increases or cuts, will probably determine what it does around 62. The recent high was around 62.50. And these sort of indicators here are just showing that it's in a longer term, little bit of an uptrend. It's starting to swing up. And the blue line there is more of a shorter term trend, which is showing that we are in an upward trend, as we can see. So Aussie Euro is looking pretty good. And if we could get figures up at around 62.50, get client rates above 62, best time you've seen in nearly 12 months. So Aussie Euro there, great. If you're moving money across.
I think that's
the next. Yeah.
Sorry, I was going to say that's exactly right. I think you're looking at those political pieces at the moment, and I'm assuming, and apologies for jumping across, but if we're moving into the US at the moment, obviously that's that AUD-USD pair at the moment in terms of where it's sitting, and obviously with the political uncertainty at the moment in the US with the elections imminent, is certainly having an impact and working in the favour of the AUD at the moment.
Definitely, it definitely is. And on top of that, with uncertainty around, Israel in the Middle East, and there seems to be bombings going off, every day at the moment through Lebanon, through Israel. It seems like it's a real concern. You wouldn't want to be part of it, but it does affect the markets as well. And this is the Aussie US. If you have a look here, we're sort of looking at daily chart again. I'll just bring that in a little. So if you look back where we are this morning, we're back up at that 69 cent level. The last time we were there was June and July 2023. Before that, sort of February, we were at 70 cents. So again, looking at the sort of, the shorter term trends, we're definitely on an upward trend. Both markers are pointing that way, and we're right in that 67.50 to 70 cent range. it looks like, look, it never goes up in straight lines, but you'll have a couple of red days. But overall, with Australia looking to hold their interest rates, at least till December are the reports. So there's no room for cuts, which will give us a bit of strength here. Commodity prices are going well, so that's also giving the Aussie a bit of a boost. And with the US cutting rates, so I didn't realise, but when they cut them last week at 50 basis points, that was the biggest cut they'd had in about 16 years.
Great.
Even though they've cut them, they've never cut the 50. So yeah, everything's looking great for the Aussie at the moment. So if you're an importer, and as we know, we deal with a lot of importers that import, sports apparel, sports gear, or do the sports tours. Having a strong Aussie for them is huge, because a month ago, 6 weeks ago, they're at 63, 64 cents. Now we're up at 69. So that can be a massive difference to your P&L and your bottom line, and protecting your profits with things like limit orders and forward contracts. We talk about a lot. We do a lot of them with corporates, is locking in a rate today for the next 12 months or 6 months or 3 months. And that's a huge tool to use, especially when you're at multi-month highs. So yeah, very key week for the Aussie US, given all the news and all the political drama that surrounds it, and the fact that we're getting close to that sort of psychological traders level of a around 70 cent mark. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
100%. And just a sort of little bit left field, just a little bit north of the US border, in Canada at the moment, we're looking at, what are we at, 18-month highs at the moment. We're trending at about 109, if you like. Things aren't looking too bad there. Obviously, a stable economy in terms of what it offers, even though it's sitting just north of the US and everything that's happening there. It's actually a good opportunity from an Australian point at the height we are sitting at now, 18-month highs. We're not really far off a 5-year high.
Yeah, I know. We sort of peaked, but 2023, it went up very quickly and spiked, and then came all the way back down. And as you say, looking at it from the other point of view, we're at 93.30 if you're Aussie buying Canadian. And as I say, they're the northern cousins, but they like to keep themselves very separate from the US. And they'll be doing that there as well. But no, it's definitely looking strong. But the odd player in the Canadian Premier League that for them, sending money back, is not the greatest time. But we've got a couple of people that, even travellers, people that might travel. Great time if you're going across there. And the other one I was just going to touch on quickly was the pound. So while there's no massive news out at the moment, it's sort of bounced off key levels again. So this green one here is 195, give or take a few pips, and then 193. So sort of since July, we've just bounced in and around here, a couple of spikes up. That was the day around the Japanese move and just a lot of volatility in the markets. Coming back in, and it's just sort of in between these two indicators that I sort of just keep an eye on, and in between that 193 to 195. So sort of going a bit sideways at the moment. Over the past couple of years, I always tell people, if you're above 190, I consider that a good rate. That's a 190 figure, there. So it's been in and around that. So anytime you're above 190, 193, and if you're lucky enough to get 195 plus, which we have on a few occasions, fantastic. Otherwise, it's spent a lot of time, below 190 and as far back as sort of 170, 180. So 1.9 and above, fantastic. Everyone wants the 2 to 1. And when we get there, we're going to be busy. It used to be the key level. Now I'm just thinking that 190 and above, 193, if you can get it, as I said, ideal. We've got a house sale happening today in the UK, bringing money back across here. So we'll just guide that and watch that over the next couple of days and see what happens. But yeah, that's pretty much it on a currency front from a lookout perspective, and a couple of examples of things we've got going on. Definitely keep an eye on the Aussie Yen for sure in regards to just what that's doing, and whether you're using SportsFX or using someone else, is have a look at limit orders in and around those rates and the movement that it's making, and just see if there's anything that we can assist with.
Is it worth, mate, just really quickly, just for all those out there, especially some of the athletes that might be looking at moving their money, just a quick definition of what a limit order is for them?
Yeah, definitely. So let me just, I think my screen went off there. Let's just say we're looking at pound Aussie. So we've got pound Aussie here. As I say, it's been in and around that 193 to 195 area. So if you just said I wanted 195, what we can do is in the bank, we can lodge an order a little bit above it, just say in here. And if that rate was to come up, basically what you're doing is you're setting a target rate above the current rate. So if you've got a bit of time on your hands and you want 195, we just lodge that with a bank. And on days like this where it spikes up, that'll take out your order. So even though it would have sold off, you can take advantage of these spikes in the market. It only has to hit that level for a second and it will buy your order. So if you say I want to sell 100,000 pounds at 195 and buy 195,000 Aussie, it only has to touch it for a sec. It'll fill your order. Even if it goes back down to 193 overnight, you're guaranteed your 195. So it's a really, really good tool when you have a bit of time on your side and there's movement in the markets. And if I jump back across to the Aussie Yen quickly, same thing. It would be looking at limit orders, in and around that area to see what is happening and if there's anything that can be done. Just put, you got time. We've got one player in particular that does have time. He doesn't have to move his money. He's got to move it over the next 12 months. So it's with him. Can he put a few targets in and around, this area here? We've got an alert set. As you can see, there's an alert set there for him. If it does come down here, give him a quick call. Say, look, we're at good levels. Or do you want to put some limit orders in with the bank and we can watch that over the coming weeks and take advantage of it if it gets there.
And I think that's the advantage of SportsFX, mate, the ability to work, in isolation, client by client, and setting those limit orders for them. So, and educating them around the best possible outcome for them, especially if they've got time on their hands. As you well know, mate, athletes think about this when they need to move it, not necessarily before they need to move it. So, where we can help them and educate them is exactly that, where the opportunities lie inside that future market.
Yeah, no, definitely. We've got one at the moment, house sale out of the UK. We booked the deal about 2.5 weeks ago at 196. So he's got £500,000 sat there, booked, guaranteed at 196 because he had limit orders in on the days that it spiked. Whereas if he's doing that today at 193, he's about 15 grand worse off. So it can be huge. And again, rates will always go higher. They'll always go lower. You'll never catch the top of the bottom. But if you can take advantage of spikes in the market, multi-week or multi-month highs, that's really all you can ask for, and make sure you have a professional experience. Funds come in and go out quickly, and you're looked after. So,
totally agree.
Excellent, mate. Well, that'll wrap us up for day one of our currency updates. We'll touch base again in the morning with just a quick overview of what that news has done to the markets and if anything's moved, crazily overnight. But otherwise, Matt, thanks very much for your time this morning, and we'll chat tomorrow.
Always, Chris. Speak to you soon, mate.